Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Koss, founder of Kev Advotech, and thank you for joining today. I'm delighted and thrilled to have three very special guests from leaders from three different organizations that I'm going to introduce in a moment. But these three organizations and leaders have come together to develop adaptive technology to benefit the special needs community and those with disabilities. So I'm very excited to hear more and learn more. And as we go through the conversation, as you meet them, we're also going to talk about an upcoming event that they have framed and advertised as a Buildathon, which I think is pretty unique. It'll be in early December, and it's an opportunity for the community, other third parties, to come together and work on some pretty cool ideas and technologies to aid folks with disabilities and special needs. So anyway, Andrew, I'd like to first turn it to you. Andrew is the head of the Scott Morgan Foundation. And Andrew, I'd like you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, how the organization, how the foundation came to be, and a little bit of the personal story, which is quite fascinating. So welcome.
Of course. So thank you everybody for joining today. Like Mike said, my name's Andrew Morgan. I'm the CEO of the Scott Morgan Foundation, and it all came together. It's quite personal for me. It all came together because my uncle had motor neurons disease, MND in the UK, ALS in the US. And as you know, any sort of family member would do, you wanted to help. And for me, I was lucky enough to help out in such a way that I could help Peter, the founder of the Scott Morgan Foundation, with what started as the sort of everyday things, helping him out in the mornings, as a sort of a general care. But it soon progressed when Peter realized that there was so much more he could do. There was so little out there for people with ALS that he, with his background in technology, he knew there was a better way. So I was lucky enough to then help him promote the foundation that he started, the Scott Morgan Foundation, where we promoted technologies that can really help people. So Peter had an avatar to portray his emotions. His eye tracking system, together with Intel, the same system Stephen Hawking used. They adapted that for his needs, and yeah, so it all evolved from there to for me now taking over from where he left off with the foundation and really pushing it as far as we can go to help everybody we can, really.
That's amazing, Andrew. Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask Logan and John to introduce themselves in a minute. And I'll go to Logan. I'll go to you first. But as you introduce yourself, Logan, a little bit of your background and your current role, I'd like to hear a little bit more about how the three of you as different organizations came together. So Logan, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I am the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of the appliedAIstudio that started with my partner, Jerry Overton, who is also a member of the Scott Morgan Foundation. And that's ultimately how I came to know Peter and Andrew. The initiatives of the foundation are really aligned with the mission of the appliedAIstudio, which is to use and advocate for human-centered AI. And that has a lot to do with how we all work together. I don't want to take up too much of the introduction time though, so I'm also going to hand this over quickly to John, and then we can talk a bit more how the three organizations work together.
Awesome. John, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Pleasure to be here. So I'm John Trapasso. I'm a product manager with Lenovo's commercial business for the PC and desktop space. So I work closely with all sorts of people doing all sorts of very clever things with new technology. We got involved with the Scott Morgan Foundation because a couple of my colleagues had actually worked with Dr. Stephen Hawking on his solution in the past. And the folks at Intel who had already joined the Scott Morgan Foundation had reached out to us to find out if we would be interested in working with Peter. And I had the honor of working with him for the last 6 months of his life, and was appointed as the Chief Operating Officer of the Scott Morgan Foundation early in the spring, actually. So it's very much a near and dear to our hearts type of thing. One of the big Lenovo phrases that we take very seriously is smarter technology for all, and we find that there's honestly, sadly, a lot of things that can be done and are overlooked for people who are living with disabilities that can actually help them to better make use of the technology and let the technology support them in whatever activities they wish to pursue.
That's awesome. That's a great mission and cause here. Andrew, I wanted to ask you a question as just to step back for a minute. So can you share a little bit about some of the things you mentioned, Peter, and creating an avatar and that, a little bit more about some of the technologies that really help him?
Of course I can.
Yeah.
Peter quickly realized quite soon on with MND, one of the things obviously you lose is your voice, and people think that's the biggest thing you're going to lose, but for Peter, the biggest thing he was going to lose is the way you can really show somebody that you love them, that you're happy to see them. Those range of emotions that you light up when somebody walks into the room. And he didn't want to lose that. So together with some very, very clever people at Pinewood Studios, the same people actually that brought Carrie Fisher back to life in Star Wars, they photographed Peter's face, created a high resolution avatar, fully working, smiling, and linking that with his text-to-speech system, again, which was created by Sarah Proc. It really could, give that emotional, the emotional through the voice as well as, the emotional through the faces. And so for Peter, that was really important. And that's what we did with a bunch of very clever people, again, from Embodied Digital, Octagon, all these little companies coming together, to create something amazing. And that's what we're still trying to do. We're still trying to, not to Peter's extent, because that's just not practical, but to a point to give that back to people, to try and figure out a way of, somebody at home having the same things Peter did, to be able to, scan their face, all their emotions, the way they smile when they see their loved ones, or simply, being able to give your daughter away at a wedding. You've lost your voice, so to be able to record your voice in such a way and then take it and write your speech and then tune your voice the way you want it, the pauses with the emotion, with the speed ups, just, so you can get those sort of dad jokes in, then, that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we're trying to give back to people.
That's awesome. Give them their dignity back, right? And
absolutely.
Help them live their best life possible. That's
absolutely. Peter still, he was fully paralyzed. And by the end, his eye gaze system didn't even work. But he's still by 9 a.m. he was in the office, didn't leave till 5. And, we figured out a way to communicate. And yeah, it might have only been 3 or 4 emails a day, but he made sure his paragraphing, his spelling, everything. He never sent out a bad email. MND was no excuse to let your standards slide, he would say.
That's great. No, thank you for that. So maybe this one, Logan, I'm going to ask you to go first, if you don't mind. So tell us a little bit about how the three parties here came together, right? What is Lenovo's role in the relationship versus appliedAIstudio and the interrelation with Andrew and the Scott Morgan Foundation?
Yeah, so we're all connected together through the Scott Morgan Foundation. So if you think of the foundation, it's a consortium of companies and individuals. And so as John mentioned, he's the chief operating officer of the foundation. And at this point, that's kind of his role as an individual. He originally came through as Lenovo's kind of company involvement.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say this before, I'm actually the chief information officer of the foundation. That is my role as an individual, although my company is also heavily connected and involved in the foundation. This is something I think is actually really special about the foundation, in that companies, in a sense, they're operating in their almost peoplehoodness as members of the foundation. But then the individual people who actually make things happen, they also are pulled in and become connected to it. So we have many people who are staying connected to the foundation even as they move on to new companies. And in a sense, that just brings new companies into the fold.
Sure. Yeah.
For our work, it's Lenovo has incredible connections to many other companies, many other technologies, and they have that breadth of experience working on big projects. The appliedAIstudio, we're bringing a very AI focused. How can we use AI to bridge technologies for people? And so we work very closely on different initiatives.
I kind of think, and I don't want to overstate or understate this, I should say, I kind of personally kind of look at Lenovo as certainly being leaders in devices and hardware and in some of the peripherals that around all that architecture. And Logan, I see appliedAIstudio is the software engine. Not to say Lenovo doesn't have and develop software, because they do, but I'm kind of sensing a pretty good interrelationship as far as how you each contribute to the development and architecting some of these solutions. So that's pretty exciting. So I want to shift gears now. Let's talk about this Buildathon that I mentioned a few minutes ago. I was fascinated when I first read and heard about this a few weeks back. I want to make sure that I and the audience, of course, understand the concept, and tell us a little bit about what it's about, who can participate, how can they participate, and we'll kind of go from there. So Logan, I don't know if you want to go first and then pass it to John. Your call.
Well, I'll get a quick kickoff on defining what we mean by a Buildathon, and then I'll let John kind of fill in the details and more specifics of what we're envisioning for this Buildathon. Mm-hmm. So a Buildathon is it's a competition of ideas. Often, historically, they've been called hackathons, and they've very much focused on software ideas, software initiatives, and they've been very, very intense. weekend, 24, 48 hours. You know, college students do these. You don't sleep, you live off of caffeine and pizza and Mountain Dew. And a build-a-thon is a little different. It builds on that. It's more inclusive. It runs over a longer period of time so that it does not take a person 100% away from their life. It also expands on who participates in the ideas. So you can be building software, you can be building hardware, you can be designing and building out ideas. So with that's how our Buildathon is running, and that's how we want to be able to bring as many people into the community and to participate as possible. John, do you want to give a little bit of details around our Buildathon specifically this December?
Sure. So at a high level, our goals here are twofold. First is to simply bring more awareness to the needs for assistive technology and the designing to better support individuals who are living with disabilities. Because honestly, as I'm very fond of telling people who I work with, it's not like anyone actually goes to work and says, okay, I just don't care about this group of people because it's only this percentage. It's that they just don't stop to think about it. So when we look at, for example, recruiting college students to participate, they're a perfect audience to make more aware of these types of things, because whatever field they go into, the more cognizant they are of what impacts their decisions are having on everyone in every different community with every different type of special need, the more likely it is that they're going to not introduce new obstacles for people to live their lives and to really thrive. The second goal, of course, is to inspire and get great ideas in terms of how to really move the needle in the assistive technology space, what we can do to make for better and more interesting solutions for people, and really to think outside the box, because we have a lot of very smart people who are really able to dive deep into things, but that does not mean we don't have huge blind spots. We all do. And the more people we get giving us input and giving suggestions on different paths, the more likely it is we're going to come up with something fantastic that we can work together on to make something really meaningful that has a huge impact on people's lives. Like Logan said, one of the big differences between our Buildathon and most traditional hackathons is that most of the time they're software only, and in the traditional hackathon sense. When they're not, they are software and hardware only generally. And we wanted to expand even beyond that to the point where if design majors, art majors, literally anybody wants to sit down and come up with ideas, it doesn't matter if they have the technical skills to implement the ideas, they can still compete by documenting and writing up plans for how this solution could work. Because if it's a great idea, that's really what we're trying to get at. We're not necessarily lacking in people who are able to implement things. We're lacking in new and innovative ideas that can really move the needle.
Oh, that's great, John. Thank you. So help me understand a little bit more what categories of solutions, give us an idea of different categories of solutions. Logan, I know for appliedAIstudio, for example, you focus on home technology, right? So that those with special needs and disabilities can be as independent as possible. And the key word, I think, is safety, right? Live safely within their current environment. And then there's other categories. So are these the kind of, what are the kind of categories and solutions that you hope to focus on as you bring a broader group of talented people together for this Buildathon in December? Does that make sense? Does my question make sense?
Yeah, it does. So really broadly speaking, so the name of our Buildathon is Thriving Through Technology. And if you think about to thrive, what does a person need? And so a person needs to feel safe. And so that's where we're focused quite a bit in the appliedAIstudio with our product Highcliffe AI, which we are have as open source, and we're bringing to two of the challenges to speed people in their development and their ideas. The other area is to communicate, to connect. Humans are social creatures, you know, as Andrew talked about, having the avatar, being able to have the ability to still have nonverbal communication, as well as really innovative ideas of how to get verbal communication back to someone who has lost their voice. So that's another major area of thriving, and that's another area where we have specific challenges, especially in and around that avatar, being able to make it easy for somebody to create one for themselves. And then the other area is to move, mobility. You know, as animals, that's just an intrinsic thing on how we deal with things that we want, things we want to get away from, is we move. We have that autonomy. And for people with severe disabilities or even not severe disabilities, you know, things that constrain that mobility constrain your ability to thrive. And so that's another area where we're focusing on. And we have Lucy supporting us in those challenges as well. John, is there anything you want to add to what we're doing?
To add a little bit of additional granularity in some of them. For example, in the communication space, one of the big challenges and the big gaps that exist today is mostly in expressivity. So speech to, or text to speech is a very common, very well implemented thing that exists everywhere. However, the majority of the time, this comes across in a fairly monotone voice that doesn't have that level of expression. That it's fine if you're communicating with a store or your bank or something like that. But if you're, like to Andrew's point, if you're giving your daughter away at her wedding, you really want to be able to infuse your actual emotion into that speech, so that it sounds like you would have if you were still able to speak using your mouth directly. And that's one of the things that we were working on with Peter. For example, we had to the point where the avatar can actually sing for him, can do different language translations and things like that, and working on things like having just the overall mood and tone of what he was saying. So, like for example, if he was happy about something and pleased, like his avatar would be smiling and the voice would be more upbeat and positive sounding. If he was being more sarcastic, there might be a small smirk and just that different tone. Things like that are easy, small details to miss, but that have enormous impacts on how much of that sense of connection that we can restore to people who have lost it.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. So let's talk a little bit more about the details around how to join, right? Let's go back to the audience again. I know I heard John, you say, you mentioned college students are a prime target to participate, and some others. So can we get in a little more detail? Who's the target or ideal participants for this wonderful event? Logan, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start with the ideal participant is anybody who wants to make a difference, who wants to be a part of a community of builders and developers and designers who care about using technology to enable people across the world to thrive. As John mentioned, we're targeting a lot of colleges and college students just because they're on the beginnings of their careers. And so we want to capture essentially the next 20 years of whatever they're going to develop and have the seed of developing with accessibility in mind. But anybody who wants to make a difference is an ideal participant. For how to participate, how to get involved, the easiest is to sign up and come. So we are running the Buildathon December 6th through December 12th. It is going to be run primarily virtually, so anybody in the world can participate. And they can sign up for it at the appliedAIstudio website, which is appliedAI.studio. And it's right up there on our homepage. It's really easy to find where to go to sign up. John, is there anything, or Andrew, anything you guys want to add about ideal participants and how to participate?
I think that's good, actually. No, I would say anyone who has ideas and wants to make a difference, wants to inspire new work. Like I said, the broader base we have of people and experience and ideas coming in, the better the overall solutions at the end are going to look and be. Andrew?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you know, with the college students and the younger generation that don't have 20 years of doing things a certain way behind them. So they come with a fresh set of thinking, a fresh ideas, fresh attitude, and like Logan said, I mean, and then you've got the sowing the seed for the next 20 years of being inclusive and having that in mind when you build for people, because like John said, you do it with the best interest at heart. But ultimately, if you are blindsided, you can't think of everything, and having that sort of having that experience behind you will help you.
No, a wonderful cause, right? As we talked about it at the front end of this and then throughout, and I deeply admire the mission that all of you have undertaken here. And from a very personal perspective, I mean, my son, Kevin, my wife and I, our son, Kevin, who's 36 with a traumatic brain injury, has some of his own very unique and difficult challenges. I am personally keenly interested in following all of you and this whole thing and share with our audience on the progress. I just think I love what you said a few times here about getting some of the participants, certainly those in the college level that are just starting out in their careers. It's so important to feel like you're contributing something to society that's greater than just the corporate good, right, so to speak. So I think that's great. Brilliant idea. And I will certainly share on the back end of this too, on how to connect, right, and sign up for this Buildathon. What else? I'd like to give each of you a chance to kind of make some closing comments here. And I want to make sure I didn't overlook anything, but maybe John, if we go to you first, if you don't mind, what else would you like to add and encourage the audience?
Sure. So I think that the biggest thing that I would give as a takeaway is really just to pause and think about how anything we work on, anything we do, what could make things better for people who have a different impairment or a different perspective than what we experience on a day-to-day basis ourselves. That's really the key part in how to make the world a better place and more inclusive. And in addition to that, if anyone who's listening to this is interested in participating more broadly and would like to potentially join the Scott Morgan Foundation, please, of course, feel free to reach out to any of the three of us on LinkedIn or anywhere else, and we would be happy to make the connections and bring you into the fold.
Great. That's awesome. Logan?
Yeah, one thing I want to also mention is we talked a lot about having people come with ideas, help us see beyond our blind spots. But I also recognize there's a lot of people out there who have a great desire to work in the space, but maybe they don't have an idea, or at least not one immediately. Ideas are born often from seeing and working on other things. So I don't want those people to feel discouraged from participating, because we do have things we're working on. We have some very specific ideas that we want help with, and we have actually structured the Buildathon to help funnel people into finding ideas quickly, or just picking up and running with something that we're working on. So I want to make sure that's stressed, that anybody who wants to participate, whether you're a college student or a retiree or a professional, somewhere in the middle, we've designed the Buildathon to be inclusive, to fit in your current lives, to give you a platform to share ideas that you've had because of ways accessibility needs have already touched your lives, or we've given you ideas to run with because you want to help, but you don't know where to start yet. So I guess that's what I want to close with, is that this really is for everyone, and it's designed to be that.
Yeah, no, that's great, Logan. Thank you. And I sense this and see this as an opportunity for others to network and build their network, right? I mean, this would be a wonderful network to expand upon. So again, I think it's great. I'm gonna, before I turn this to Andrew with a couple closing comments, I'm intrigued too, Logan. I'm gonna put you on the spot. You mentioned a little bit earlier, you said prizes. Tell me a little bit about prizes for participants. I mean, you mentioned this too as a bit of a contest as well. So fill us in.
So I'll fill in a little bit, and then I am actually going to toss this over to John, because Lenovo is very generously providing the prizes for this Buildathon. And we are designing it also so that there are a lot of prizes awarded. There are actually 4 mini Buildathons going on, and we have first, second, and third prizes within each of those challenges. John, do you want to provide more of the details, since it's Lenovo's generosity that's funding?
I think for the majority of the details on it, I'll refer people to the actual write-ups that you've included in the registration forms, so that they can see those there. In terms of how the things are broken out, that's also covered there, and how we're structuring the different competition pieces. And a lot of that is, of course, given that we're looking for a very broad solution, it's very difficult to compare a pure design submission to a software implementation or a hardware implementation. So we want to make sure we have different categories that people can compete in, so that it's reasonable for the judges to actually figure out how they rank against each other. The other thing I would note, though, is that the prizes are all structured with the explicit assumption in the registration that teams will only exist up to 5 members, and each member will get the same prize at each tier. So it's not something where the team has to worry about how to split things up or anything like that. It's everybody will get their own. And of course,
Nice.
that is subject to some terms and conditions, like you would expect, like as Lenovo's hosting it and sponsoring it, obviously our employees are not eligible because, well, that would just be shady. Things like that, but nothing that should be a surprise to anyone.
John understood. That's great. Everyone likes a little bit of competition, a little friendly competition, and certainly some some nice door prizes are always make things interesting. So again, thank you and thank Logan. And I wish you all the best for this Buildathon here. And let's get some folks on board and some participants here that can bring some pretty exciting and unique things to the table. So Andrew, I'd like to close with you, get your perspective, closing comments on this. Again, it's really around the foundation, the Scott Morgan Foundation, and
Firstly, I
how
want to
this
say
all
what,
started.
firstly, I want to say what Logan and John couldn't, regarding the prizes. They could have just said cool tech. I mean, that would have done it. But obviously, they've got to go into a little bit more detail than that. But to echo what Logan and John have said, I can't really add much to it other than, the aim is to build a community of people, around the technology. And, with hopefully it's not just going to be over, the 3 or 4 days of the event. I'm hoping that like they said, it'll carry on beyond that the people that we get participating, really do want to make a difference. And, to again, coin what Peter always used to say, leave their fingerprints on the future of technology. That's what we're looking for. And, that's what we're trying to achieve.
I love it. I love it. Again, great cause. I'm excited for all of you. I'm excited for myself for the personal reasons I gave earlier. And I'm looking forward to seeing some amazing outcomes and to watch this thing expand. And any way we can help at KevAdvoTech, please reach out. And I am happy to support this extremely worthy cause. So with that, Andrew, Logan, and John, thank you all so much for joining today. And to our audience, please stay tuned for more. And thanks for joining today.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having us.